views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Hello, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page, welcoming everyone here to my show, Patty's Page, of course. And I interviewing today Mr. Nathaniel Mervar.
That's correct.
Okay. So, welcome to another filmmaker. It's great to talk to someone who understands the same language, terminology and all. So, Nathaniel, where were you born and raised?
Yeah, so I'm a Fort Wayne native here. Was born and raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I got very deep roots here. I just love Fort Wayne. It's a great atmosphere, great town to live in. And I love it how we're not necessarily a big city, but we're not necessarily a real small city too. We're nicely situated right in the middle. So grown and raised here, homeschooled all the way through. So it's a great place to live and call home.
So you lived in Fort Wayne. You didn't move anywhere else, or no?
No, so my dad's originally from Indianapolis, so we got some family down there. My mom lived her whole life here in Fort Wayne as well. And so, yeah, we've done a lot of traveling around the world, around the United States, but I have to admit there's no place I've liked as much as Fort Wayne. So
While you were growing up, did your parents mentor you what you wanted to be when you got older, or did other people give you these ideas what you wanted to do?
Yes, that's a fantastic question. I think for me, I've been really blessed to have parents who've always been very supportive and encouraging me in my natural gifts. I think that's one thing I really enjoyed about being homeschooled. It allowed me to pursue my interest at a young age and kind of tailor my curriculum and my education towards that. So my parents have always encouraged me just to follow what giftings the Lord has given me. And so for the first 12 years of my life, I wanted to be a farmer. But my idea of being a farmer was you plant the crops and you come back 4 or 5 months later and harvest them, and you're self-sufficient and everything.
Nothing in between.
You're right. Maybe water them every once in a while. So it was a very, very childish view of farming. And I've learned a lot since then, and that farm's really, really hard work. So props to all our farmers out there. But about age 13, I started getting interested in filmmaking. And you can probably see over here on this side, my Playmobil figures behind me. Yeah. Those are the big ones. They're not actually that size in real life, but I started collecting those at a young age. And I remember a friend of mine gave me a film at age 13 to view, and it was another homeschooled family, and they had done one of those Lego stop motion films with all of their toys. And I was really impressed with that. And I thought, hey, that's something I can do. And I'm somebody who likes to make big projects. And so starting with Playmobil and Lego was a way for me to build big castles and all these different scenes.
What's
while
Playmobil?
Yeah, so Playmobil, it's very similar to Lego. Obviously, Lego is what a lot of people are familiar. Playmobil are just a little bit bigger, so Legos are about that tall, and Playmobil figures are just a little bit taller. They originate from Germany, and so they're a good toy company.
I was born there in Bavaria, so
Okay. Yeah. And so I started with that. And to make a long story short, we ended up moving to a different house. And I remember when we were looking at this house when I was 13, there was this little bitty extra bedroom tucked up in the top right-hand side of the second story of the house. And I thought, man, if we moved here, I could start making movies from this extra bedroom here. And so we ended up moving to this new house, and I started my first film about a year later. And that really fueled my excitement for filmmaking, realizing all the stuff I could create and make and the stories I could share, and just kind of self-taught myself a lot of that stuff. With the blessing of the internet, I was able to learn a lot of stuff on my own through trial and error, through watching different people showing you how to do stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's just continued to kind of grow from there.
You grow. I mean, you never stop learning, you know?
Yeah,
So
that's definitely something I've learned.
what was your favorite part of filming?
Yeah, so I've kind of done a little bit of everything being a small company. So I've done everything from the producing, the writing, the editing to distribution. But probably my favorite part of filmmaking is, I'd have to say, the editing or the writing. I really enjoy assembling all the pieces in the editing software and seeing that final product really start to shape up. And then I really enjoy the writing process too. I'm a storyteller by nature, so it's fun to write those projects. And then the filmmaker side of me, I don't, I am very ambitious in my storytelling. And then you write something and you're like, oh, well, this is probably a little bit larger than I should have gone for. But
Do you expand over outside the envelope when you're doing your filming? You might say you're doing more than you thought you wanted to do. Just go for it, no matter what.
yeah, we've definitely had that nature of sometimes I will write a project or something and I will intentionally push what we've done, because with film and everything, you always want to continue to try something bigger, something bolder, something larger in scale. And so we will intentionally write some stuff that I know is going to be hard for us to pull off, but that forces us to grow and to challenge ourselves. And as you mentioned, you never stop learning. And if I ever reach a point in my filmmaking craft where I'm content with where I'm at, I think that's a very dangerous place to be. You always want to keep pressing for.
Overconfident.
You're right.
Say that. What was the first style of film that you started? Genre?
Yeah, a great question. So the first style I did would have been the stop motion animation, which is what all the old Christmas classics like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and different stuff were made. And stop motion animation, for those who aren't familiar with it, is when instead of computer generated animation, which is all the rage nowadays, it was where you take your character like a Lego figure or a little puppet, and to give the illusion of movement, you take a picture, then you move the character's arm, you take a picture, move the character's arm, and so on and so forth. And you string all those pictures together, and that gives the illusion of movement. And so that was my first style of film, was created in that particular type of filmmaking. And I would have said my first, as far as genre, my first film was called Kingdom's Edge, and it was based off a medieval book series by Chuck Black. And so it was a kind of an action film as far as the genre.
Action. Cool. So, like you said, you did animation films as well. Just drawings or anything? Drawing? Do you draw pictures like cartoons, or are you into cartoons as well, or just animated objects?
Yeah, well, I wish I was more artistic in my drawing abilities. That's one area I'm very weak in. I'm not an artist by any means. So while I'm very intrigued by some of the animation where people actually draw it out and all that, I just don't have the artistic ability. I remember one time I was playing Pictionary with some friends of mine, and my job was to draw the world, and it ended up looking like a cracked egg. So, so I'm definitely not one of those people that can draw. So I can animate stuff with actual figures and stuff like that, but I've never been able to get into the more drawing style, which is very impressive for people who can do that, whether it's on the computer or actually on a piece of paper.
When did you start working with humans? Animals.
Yeah, so live action, let's see here. I started at 13, dabbling in stop motion. I think my first live action film, I was 15, so about 2 years later. But I didn't really fully start doing more live action stuff till I was probably 17 or 18. So, and it's just.
What year were
you? I am 20. I'm 1998, so I'm 22 years old.
Oh my stars! A genius already. Oh,
No, I wouldn't know about that, but
oh, you're good at what you're doing, hon. And you know your computers, do you now?
yeah. So one thing in filmmaking is you have to be pretty computer savvy because everything we do now, from the planning of a project to the writing of a project to the shooting to the editing and the distribution, is so much is done on computer. So you kind of have to learn the arts of the trade. And the thing that's kind of challenging too in film now is technology keeps changing so fast.
Oh, yeah.
And so as soon as you perfect something, they change it and you got to learn it, a lot of it over again. So
But
never
you
gets
can
dull.
never stop learning. Always something new cropping up. Speaking about cropping, how are you good in that when you have to do film uh, cutting and re-editing and all that jazz?
Yeah. So my way I prefer to edit is I use a program called Final Cut Pro. It's from Apple.
We have that.
And the thing that I really like about it is it's just a very user interface, very user friendly. So often some of the different programs people use are so complicated to learn. And so I've really enjoyed that program. And typically how I edit, if I'm putting, say, a live action film together, I'll bring all the footage in and then I'll watch through it one time. Because in live action, you typically have multiple takes. I'll pick my favorite take that I really like, and then I'll drop that into the timeline. And then after I get all that lined up, I'll watch it and make sure I really like all those takes. And then from there, I start doing what I call audio balancing, because you're cutting between those different shots.
Yeah.
You have to blend the audio, otherwise you can tell it's cut because the audio changes in between each shot. And so I have to go back and how you typically will do it is you'll take your audio from the two clips, and where they just are right up against each other, you'll extend them past each other. So they're kind of
Right.
overlapping. And then you'll use a fade effect to fade them into each other. And that kind of hides those cuts you make in film. And so once I've done the,
Do you work with the audio, the visual, what else?
yeah, so you typically will have your sound effects layers.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, those can be a lot depending on how many sounds are going on in the scene. Then you'll have your soundtrack down at the bottom. And then as far as video layers, typically I'll have one layer. And if I'm doing special effects, I may have 4 or 5 layers on top of that. So once you get done with a film and you stretch your timeline out to kind of look at the whole project, it looks like a puzzle. It's quite a puzzle to put
And
together.
when you get it all together, man, it's glorious.
It is.
I used to be a typesetter and graphic artist.
Mm-hmm.
I used to layer upon layer, putting each, like gold would be on one layer, like a plastic see-through. You get gold on, and then the next one red. And by the time you get everything together, all the colors, it makes a picture. And that's what you're doing with your artwork, your filming. It's an artwork, art, what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's what's always interesting too about film, because I think a lot of different industries, whether it's film or art, sometimes they're kind of glamorized and people see them as these really easy jobs per se, where you just come in and do something. And the more you get into something, you realize, wow, there is a lot of work that goes into putting these projects together. And so especially being a filmmaker, I appreciate films a lot more because I know how hard it is to get that type of shot, or just the audio balancing. Just there's so many different pieces that have to come into play to have a final product.
So you've been at this for about what? Not, let's see, 10 years now.
Yeah, getting pretty close to 10. Through my middle school, high school years, I kind of more did it as a hobby up till I was about 18. And in the past few years, I've been taking it more full time, where it's been what I'm doing around the clock.
Do you get grants or sponsors to help you with your filming?
Yes, I have some private investors who will invest. One thing we've kind of done with our filmmaking company because of Jesus Films is we're kind of very choosy how we take our funding, because a lot of times when you have an investor, you're then liable to that investor and you have a return, and then you kind of lose some of the control of your content too. So we've done a lot of our projects, we funded them in-house. We funded them ourselves
Yeah.
because then we have full control of the content and allows us to have a lot more freedom, I feel, in creating content than sometimes when you get money up front from someone, you got to
Yeah.
kind of jump through their hoops.
They want to put their own thought into it,
Exactly.
give you your freedom. I was thinking, do you do fundraisers to get the money can help you with your filming?
Yeah, so we've done a couple projects where we needed a little bit more funds than we had on hand. And so we've done some things like Kickstarter projects where we filmed one project via that, raise some funds for that. So that's definitely an option that's always out there. And it just depends. You got to weigh the decision sometimes. Is it worth doing that? Is it worth your time? Do you have the interest, or is it just better to start on smaller projects and work towards those larger ones? And for us, we're kind of working with the mindset. We're trying to make each project a little bit larger and continue to build that base of people who enjoy our content with the hopes that you can create those larger.
How do you get your works shown to the public? I mean, what venue do you work through to get?
Yeah, it's a great question. The thing that's been really nice with the explosion of the internet is there's a lot of new options now for distributing films. So originally, the old-fashioned way is you take it straight to the theater. And to take it to the theater, it's expensive. You got to have a lot of funds. You got to get the theaters to grant you showing times. There's a lot of different hoops you got to jump through. And then you also have to create a full feature film, 90 minutes or more long.
Wow.
And that's harder to do as a smaller company producing films of that length. And so for us, we've been using some of the more digital distribution. I know we've made our own DVDs and stuff. So we've produced a lot of DVDs in-house, and then we've sold them at conventions, homeschool conventions, film festivals, and the stuff of that. And then the latest thing that we're real excited that we were able to put together is we were able to launch our own streaming service. So something similar to Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. We've got our own version that we've launched as well. And that's a huge, huge way to be able to sell your content. Yeah. Because for us, it's a monthly fee. People get all of our content that we've ever made, are making, and ever will.
Your own website.
It's your own website. You have control over it. It's really, really nice to have that. And it's fun because when you have your own streaming service, you don't have to just create feature films. You can create short films, documentaries. It all adds to the value of your company. And I'm somebody, I like to be a jack of all trades. I enjoy doing documentary and drama and animation and all over the board. So it's fun to have that ability to do that.
My husband did a documentary on Mr. Terrence Dorn, or Terry Dorn, who lives here in Fort Wayne. And he did excellent. So I know what you mean by documentaries and working hard. He uses the computer to edit and all that. Completely different than what you're doing.
Well, documentaries take a real gift because it's a challenge because documentaries can be dry. And so to find a way to make it engaging, and I have a lot of respect for people who make documentary films.
And also, it's the topic that you pick to do.
Yes.
On. Bigger than life kind of thing. I was going to ask, why did you call your company, or is it a business organization? What?
Yeah, so we are a business. We're not an organization. We are a full-time company hoping to continue to create more and more films as we go along. So
because of Jesus Films, where'd you get that title?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story. I think I got it back when I was 14 or 15 when I came up with the idea of the name. And I'm one of those people, I like names of companies. It's kind of neat when right up front you know what a company stands for, kind of what some of their beliefs, what they value. And so because of Jesus Films, the idea behind the name is, for me as a Christian, I believe it's all because of Jesus. It's because of Jesus I have life. It's because of Jesus I have breath, that I have eternity to look forward to because he's died on the cross to save me from my sins, and repenting of my sins, I have that hope. And so in my mindset, because of Jesus films, is we're making these films because of Jesus. It's his breath he's given us, the talents he's given us, the resources, the technology, all that is because of him. And I like to keep that mindset too for me, because it's easy for me to become prideful, especially when you do a lot of the stuff yourself. So you're a jack of all trades, very knowledgeable. And so every time I say the name of my company, I'm reminded it's not because of Nathaniel films. it's because of Jesus. So it's kind of that humility thing too that kind of helps me as well.
I'm Christian myself.
Okay, awesome.
I on my TV shows have over almost 300 episodes of me talking with pro-life leaders, and I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I have over 530 some odd episodes done, one per each weekend.
That's a lot of episodes. I could testify to that.
Be prepared. You got a lot of work ahead of you, kiddo.
Right, I know.
What would you like to say to encourage my audience how to get into your kind of business? How to enjoy it, not think it as work or whatever.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a great question. For me, I think one of the most important things to remember in filmmaking is can be a very brutal business. And it's very easy to get kind of lost in yourself and make it all about you, because it is a very glitz and glamour type industry. And so I would encourage people who are looking to get into film. The first thing I have to honestly ask myself, is this where the Lord wants me to be as a Christian? That's be my first question I'd ask myself, because a lot of people go to Hollywood or go into film because of the appeal of money and fame. And very, very few people actually make the money and the fame. And it's a lot of hard work. And sometimes to get that money and fame, you got to compromise your beliefs and who you are. And it's just not worth it. And so, yeah. And so my encouragement, if you want to get into film, I would say the thing that's so neat about today's technology is you don't have to go to a film school. You don't have to go to Hollywood. I mean, our smartphones, shoot, 4K video and all that now. So you have so much you can do on your own. And it's so much, I've enjoyed learning on my own, because instead of going, come again?
Are you self-taught?
For the most part, there's some online film stuff that I took that was helpful. And it was more like I took it and I was, oh, okay, so that's what all that's called that I've been doing. That's the official technical name. And, I wish I knew that at the beginning. I learned that through trial and error. But yeah, I agree. And that's why I would encourage people, even if it's harder to go the trial and error route on your own, it's so much better, because sometimes in film school you go and you learn all the technical stuff. But in film, until you've actually had the practical hands-on experience, it's all head knowledge. And I find that until I've actually practically applied what's white balance or what's aperture, what's, how do you edit something, until I've actually did that, all that stuff didn't really help me much. All that research was great, but until I actually dived in and did it. And the other thing I would encourage people too is when you get started in film, you have this vision in your head of what project you want to create. And then you get done with it and you're like, that wasn't exactly what I was shooting for. I envisioned something grander or whatever. And even for myself today, when I create a project, it's like, yeah, I didn't quite get it where I want it to be, but not to be discouraged in that, because if I look at my first film from 10 years ago and compare that by side, you see how much you've grown. Yeah. And you have to keep doing that, because it's easy to get discouraged when you come up with that initial project and see it's not what you want it to be. You just have to realize that you're just going to have to keep pressing on in the midst of that to keep getting better and better.
We're in a world that nothing is perfect.
Right. And I'm a perfectionist by nature. So it's there comes a point in my films I have to say, okay, I can make it better, but the amount of time I'd spend doing it isn't worth it. We'll just release it and fix that next time.
Well, we can't reach perfection until we get home to heaven.
Right.
You're a very interesting person, I must say.
Thank you.
Never mind, but I gotta go. See you next week, people. Thank you for joining us on Patty's page this week. We'll see you in the future. So have a great day and God bless.
Welcome to Because of Jesus Films in our streaming service, BOJF Stream. I'm sure you are wondering, in a world that is becoming more and more crowded in the streaming industry, what makes BOJF Stream different? Glad you asked, because we've got some answers. First, we need to paint the landscape of today's culture. Entertainment is the most powerful teaching tool in today's generation. Sadly, this powerful tool has been misused to promote much evil and wickedness in our world. As a result, our culture has become desensitized to the horrors of sin. In the more recent future, we have seen an explosion of faith-based films. Unfortunately, most of the faith-based industry is nothing more than a moralized version of Hollywood, teaching watered-down truths of Scripture, if even that. Enter Because of Jesus Films. Here at BOJF, all of our content has its roots deep in the Scriptures. When we sit down to create a film, we don't ask, what is going to sell well? Or what is popular? Rather, we ask, what truths does the Lord wish for us to communicate in our next film? What does He want us to make? We take the holiness of God very seriously. We therefore take very seriously our responsibility to guard every frame in a film from Because of Jesus Films. What comes across the screen must be in line with Philippians 4:8. It must be true, right, noble, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, or praiseworthy. Scripture says not to set anything evil before our eyes. And every film created here at BOJF is produced with this in mind. We are also a family-friendly company. Now, I like to define words because when it comes to the word family-friendly, there are a lot of ideas and opinions out there on the definition. So allow me to give you our definition. We believe being family-friendly does not mean avoiding the hard topics or issues in our day and age. Rather, we believe it means that we present and deal with these issues in a family-friendly manner. In other words, if there is ever a film you're not going to watch with your children from BOJF, it is going to be because of the nature of the topic being addressed, not because of the content in the film. Big difference there. We live in a world that is very preachy when it comes to the religion of self. And we here at BOJF are very preachy when it comes to the gospel and Jesus Christ. For we are not ashamed of the gospel or Jesus Christ. The best part, BOJF Stream is more than just entertainment. We have biblical, Christ-centered teaching, extensive behind-the-scenes, tutorials, and educational training for the world of filmmaking. To summarize, here at BOJF Stream, you will find God-honoring entertainment, teaching, and education, accessible at all times, anywhere, from any device. Our prayer is that BOJF Stream will be used to motivate and encourage the Christ follower to be even more bold in living for Jesus. And for those of you who wouldn't consider yourself to be a Christ follower, we pray the Lord uses BOJF Stream as a tool to bring you into the kingdom of God. So join BOJF Stream today, knowing that not only do you get access to the rapidly expanding library of Because of Jesus films, but you also will be supporting the proclamation of the gospel through the work the Lord is doing through BOJF. So what are you waiting for? An exciting world of entertainment, teaching, and education waits for you just beyond the gates of BOJF Stream. And forever and always, to God alone be the glory.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love.
with us always and for the rest of all our lives.